Good evening. My name is Raimundo Reyes, and I am the host for Community Advisors RSR and the co-host Eduardo Rodriguez from LULAC District Council 18. And today we're going to be talking about how to establish a business. We know that in the Hispanic and Latino community, we are a growing community that is into business making. A lot of business. We talk about how do we establish a business. Eduardo.
Yeah, man. My name is Ed Rodriguez, and I am one of the deputy district directors for District 18 LULAC here in Houston. Today, I'm going to be talking to you from beautiful downtown Laguna Vista here in Port Isabel, South Padre Island, down here at the border of Texas and Mexico. But our subject is about business, and we'll be able to still bring that information to you, so you guys will have a lot of fun.
Definitely. And as a further reminder, tomorrow here in Texas, early voting starts. So, please go out and vote. If you're Hispanic and Latino, I encourage you to go out and vote and to vote for all the Hispanic and Latinos that you can find in the ballot. Because by mid 2021, we're going to be the majority. And I would like to see in the House and the Senate here in the state of Texas, locally in the counties, a lot of Hispanic politicians and statesmen, so that way we can get more representation. We start seeing that in the community, talking like us. People who understands us, who understand our background and everything. So that being said, how do how do we establish a business? Or how does a person establish a business? Going straight to the question, yeah,
Wow.
how does a person today, they're talking and they're saying, okay, there's a demand for this product. There's a demand, and maybe there's a demand. Let's say, for example, we know there's always a demand of avocados. I knew a person who sells those avocados cheap, but I wanted to, establish a business here in the states, here locally, and then sell it to the public. How do we go from there?
Okay, well, there's three things that have to occur. Obviously,
From having that idea.
yeah, there's three things that have to occur. The difference is this. The difference is that there are businesses that you have that you want to start. There are businesses that already are established and you want to be a part of that community, such as like a restaurant. Or there's also, like you said, there's a product or services that's unique, and you're trying to figure out how to get that out to the people and make that something that everybody can enjoy. So how do we get this off the ground? Well, there's three things you have to know. When you start off, you have to understand that you're either going to have to get a patent or a copyright. You're going to have to establish your company either on the local level, which is the county, or on the state level, which is with the Secretary of State of the state of Texas, or you're going to try to get yourself a franchise, something that's already established. Let's talk about, either McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Harbor Freight, Sears, whatever the story is or whatever it is you want to get. There are ways to franchise these businesses, and they have a totally different deal. So when you start out, the idea is, what do I want to do? So for this particular deal, we're going to use something that's kind of twofold. A unique business in and of itself, but also a business that has a lot of competition. In this particular case, let's say that we're going to say um, ice cream. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start this fictional company called Crazy Ed's. And Crazy Ed's, all we do is we sell ice cream. Well, wait a minute. There's a lot of people out there that already sell ice cream, 31 flavors, Dairy Queen, so on and so on and so on. It's true. So how do I think that my ice cream is going to be better than theirs? Well, it may not be better than theirs. Well, then why would I want to go ahead and get into a market that already exists with all this competition and nobody knows who I am? Well, that's a good example. But here's the difference. What if I have an idea to create this business in such a way that I eliminate my competition without eliminating my competition? Give you an example. If I talk about, let's say, Baskin Robbins, even Dairy Queen, when they decide to close their stores, most of them, on average, close about 9 o'clock. Okay. So that means that at 9 o'clock, all the ice cream parlors in Houston are closed. And they're not going to be open again till probably 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. All right. Here's why Crazy Ed's is going to succeed. Because, see, Crazy Ed's, we don't open up until 9 o'clock at night. Yep. And everybody else closes, we open. Guess when we close? We close when everybody else opens. So that 9 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning, when nobody else is open, there is no competition. I'm the only ice cream person. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, if your wife who's pregnant and she wants pickles and ice cream, guess what? You can come to my store and buy any kind of ice cream you want because there is nobody else open except me. So there's a very unique way to have a specific product, ice cream, being able to open a store with a lot of competition, ice cream, but doing it in such a way that I have a very unique and very set hours that nobody else has. I'll be the only person open for the entire. And now keep in mind, in Houston, that is almost 3.7 million people. Out of those 3.7 million people, about 1/3 of those people, or 1 million people, work at night. Yep, I have a beautiful audience, all for myself. So how do I get this thing off the ground? I got the name, I got the product, I know where I want to be, Houston. I know the hours that I want to do it on. So now I've got to go out and I got to register my name in order to get started. I go down to the county and I can file what they call a DBA. The DBA is very simple. It is a doing business as. So Ed Rodriguez is going to be doing business as Crazy Ed's. Crazy Ed's Ice Cream Parlor. Now, I go out there and I establish this name. Now that belongs to me and it's registered here in the county. So nobody else in the county can use that. There can, however, in the state, there can be people who decide to use it in the state and be able to go ahead and do other things with it. All right. But if I register and I become incorporated, I can register with the state under the Secretary of State. And now nobody in the state's allowed to use my name, only me. So, of course, there's a little bit more to it because I have to have a charter. I have to have a business license. I have to be able to put in for my taxes, for sales receipts, and all that good stuff. And all of it has to be registered. There is a fee to get that filed with the state. And of course, you're going to have to get an accountant. That's going to cost a little bit of money. You're going to have to get some employees. Now you're talking about having some human relations, payroll, and those kinds of things that you're going to have to do with as well. So all this stuff is set up. Now, does that mean that if I don't file with the state, I don't have to have that? No, you don't necessarily have to have all of that, but sooner or later, you're going to have to get it. When you're a small business, you don't really need to have a bookkeeper or a CPA to help you with the budget. Because a lot of small businesses like the ice cream place, it's probably going to be just me and my son or my daughter or my wife. So, I really don't have to worry about hiring somebody and doing a tax number and doing this and all that. Although it's great, and you should always have a business number, what they call an employer ID number. You should always go ahead and get that anyways. And the EIN is used on your taxes. It's used as a business. It also helps you to get discounts at wholesale prices and stuff like that for your products. So there's a lot of great things to get off of that. Now there's a little bitty small, company, this small business that I got going. What do I need to do? Well, in the city of Houston and Harris County, I, being a food handler, because ice cream falls under the food category, I'm going to have to get certified by the city health if it's inside the city limits, or the county health department. I have to be certified as a food server. That means I have to go to school, get certified by them, and there's a small fee to pay for that. And I have to go and learn how to be able to handle food safely, proper temperature, how to wash, how to sanitize the equipment, and so forth and so forth and so forth. Anybody who's going to be handling the food has to be able to do that. And that means if I'm going to have somebody serving, if I'm going to have somebody behind the counter, all those people have to be certified as food handlers. They've got to know what's going on. In addition to that, I have to know the safety measures inside the store. Or how do I clean it? What kind of chemicals can I use around food, what they call food grade cleaners, so that in case something happens, if I spill food, or if I get an accidentally spray something, it's not going to contaminate the food, or it's not going to cause a problem and hurt anybody that's going to be one of my customers. And then there's OSHA. OSHA has things to do too. The chemicals have to be properly stored. Certain things have to be done as far as electrical outlets and all this stuff. Before I open the business, if it's going to be a small business, I also have to get the city involved or the county involved so that the inspector can come out and inspect my business, make sure that I'm doing good. A health inspection has to be done. A fire marshal has to sign off that the building is properly set up for fire. And that is, if I'm going to have a cooking facility set up, then I have to have a hood. I have to have fire, what they call a fire suppression system in place. I have to have fire extinguishers and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that have to go in, even as a business. And this includes having to hire somebody come and do a pest control every once a month. Come in there, they clean for the roaches and rats and whatever else may be around. You got to make sure that everything is nice, clean. And today, because of COVID, we also have to have social distancing requirements that are involved as well. Cleaning the table after everybody comes in and uses it. If they're going to sit down, I got to clean the table in a certain way. My employees are going to have to wear masks. They're going to have to wear gloves, and we're going to have to keep doing this until we get the all clear from the government saying it's okay to go back to where we used to be. So there's a lot of things that go in just to start the business, and that's just getting us to open the door and make some money. Is
Right.
that crazy?
Thank you, Edward, for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. That was a lot of knowledge, and that's just to open the business. Just a friendly reminder to the public who is seeing us today, tonight, this evening, and this night, and who's going to be watching this video later on. Please drop any comments that you have in the comment section. And Eduardo or Maria, who just joined us, they're going to be able to answer those questions, because both of them operate businesses. They manage, expand their businesses. So please comment below. Maria?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Maria Segueri, La Contadora Latina, the Houston Tax Professionals. In my professional practice, I help people to register with the state as an LLC. With the IRS, I get the different permits and numbers that they need to run a business. And I help them with accounting. So I see kind of the inside operation of different businesses. And I can share with you some of that.
All right, awesome, Edward. So after the, the business opens. After the business opens, then what? How do you manage the business then?
All right, that's a very good question, and here's how we do that. All right, depending on how many people we have, we still have to go ahead and maintain records. We have to maintain the records like we talked about. If a person is going to be having a food service type of industry, which is what we're talking about Crazy Ed's Ice Cream Parlor. All right, that means that we're going to have to maintain a record on each person who has been certified as a food handler. We're going to also have to maintain records on any kind of chemicals that we have. So just in case the fire marshal or OSHA shows up, we have a list of stuff that we can show that this is the stuff that we have and that is properly marked and properly stored. Same thing with the food. We have to make sure that whatever kind of food that we have, what the temperature is, what temperatures we're keeping it at, all the stuff has to be, accounted for a health inspection or any kind of inspection that comes along. All these things have to happen. Now, if we have 1 or 2 employees, it's not a big deal. 3 employees is not a big deal. Even up to 5 employees is not a big deal. But even at that stage, you're starting to have to use either a CPA, a bookkeeper, or somebody in the accounting business or accounting field to help you maintain payroll. Because now you're talking about utilizing money to pay somebody, and that means you're going to have to take into consideration other things too. Your insurance, of course, has to be there as well. Your workman's comp has to be there as well. And there's all kinds of little things like that. If you decide to establish private individual medical insurance, you've got to go out and try to find that and find a group that can help you get something reasonable for that as well. If you're going to get medical, you have to also think about, do we get vision along with that for our employees? Do we get, dental with that as well? All these things take time to go ahead and put things together. And that's the kind of stuff that we have to try to get established. And once we get those things established, everything seems to be, moving right along. Now, let's say that we're able to take our little company here and it grows like crazy in the first 3, 4, 5, 6 months. We're at the point now where we have 10, 15, 20 employees. We are now still a small business, but we're moving along really nice. Now we really ought to think about hiring some people to help us with the admin at work. For instance, human relations, somebody that can keep us on track with the different policies, because now we're going to have to start doing something that we didn't think about and probably didn't need to do before. Not that we shouldn't do it. It's just that because of the number of employees we had, we were exempt and didn't have to accomplish this stuff. And that means diversity training, human resources, sexual harassment, all kinds of things that we have to start taking into consideration, because we've grown to a point where now we're going to be in violation if we don't do that kind of training as well. That means that those records, those training records, those things have to also be accounted for, and we have to set those things up. Now, that's when the accounting is more important for us, because now we have to get very detailed. And all these things that we're getting ready to implement into our company, we have to start giving a money value to each one of these. Because at the end of the day, we're either going to be able, like for instance, me being the business owner, if I decide to go ahead and give a class on sexual harassment, first off, I have to go somewhere to get that class and become certified to teach that, which is going to cost money. So now that money has to be deducted off of our budget. And then if I decide to go ahead and do it myself for my employees, I still have to give a cash value of that training for those hours that I'm doing it, so that we can write it off as a tax deduction at the end of the year. So all these things have to start looking into, how do we make money? How do we manage this money? And how are we able to use this money to help us leverage ourselves in the future, and also to help our employees as well? Each one of the things that we do, each step that we take, is so that the individual company and the individuals within the company are going to be able to benefit from a huge host of things. I personally like to go ahead and teach my employees to take over my job, because I like to be able to have the ability to not only teach them so that when I want to take a vacation, they can do the job, but I also would like to have the opportunity to put a program in place, because you got to start thinking about expansion down the road. If you got that much going on and you're already up to 10 to 20 employees, there's a good probability you need to make more than one store. You're getting ready to start expanding. So when you get to that stage, if you decide to make that expansion, then all of a sudden you're going to have people to run that store. Well, you have two options. Either I can go ahead and open the store myself and call it Crazy Ed's Ice Cream Emporium or Ice Cream Parlor, or whatever you want to call it, and say number one and number two, and then shift half my staff over to the new one and get started over there and get ready to start hiring a new deal. Once we're hitting 20 employees or so, now we're going to start having a training, 1 week worth of training for this and that. There's all kinds of stuff that goes in on that. And then I also can do this. Because I train my employees how to take over my job, I can start offering incentives of, hey, you know what? I'm going to open a store. How would you like to be the managing partner? And then he, through his salary or through his profit of the store, he can start helping me pay for it. And I basically am selling him a franchise. I put up the money initially. I get the store going. I get everything set up. He comes in, he becomes a managing partner for me. He, off the profits, off of what he would get as a profit, that he goes ahead and pays me a percentage of that, so that I can go ahead and start taking it off. And he's actually buying the store. And in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on what we're going to, charge on a thing like that, he becomes probably 75%, 80% ownership on that store. because I'm not going to give away the whole store, right? I want to keep something for me. But at the end, we're able to do a lot of great things. But it becomes paramount of one thing. If you become a company that is going to have 5 employees or more, you've got to find somebody who can do the books properly. Because they're at the end of the year, when you start doing your taxes, that's where the big benefit is going to come in. Without a good a good accounting person on board, you will lose money like you've never seen. And I've seen big companies do that, and I've seen little companies do that. That is what kills more businesses than anything else.
That is very true. I can tell you that. And it's also part of how do I say? Some business owners have to train themselves as far as what is a business expense and what is not. Because there's a big confusion right there. Business owners have to work hand with hand with the accountant so they can communicate good. Because an accountant can only keep records of what the business owner tells them, right? So they have to be very organized on their side so the accountant can do her job, no, in this case, like me.
One of the things that I failed to mention is the fact that, you have an option too when you decide to do that. Do I want to hire an accountant or somebody who does my books? Do I want to hire them as a full-time employee for the company? Or do I want to go ahead and do subcontract and get somebody from outside? I personally like to work for somebody outside. And the only reason that is because if you're not going to have, say, 50 employees, there's no reason to have an accountant on board. It's nice to have them outside for 2 reasons. Number one, if I have to go and get audited, I have an outside person. So IRS seems to be more favorable when you show up and you have somebody that's not part of your team, because then they can sit there and say, well, this person, the only interest that this accountant has or this CPA or bookkeeper has is just making the books look good because they're doing it right. As opposed to me having somebody working for me and we're ended up, $2 or $3 million short, then even the investigators at IRS, they seem to think, yeah, but see, you work for him. You're doing what you're told to do. So it's a lot better to have somebody that's neutral in your corner when you do that. Now, obviously, when you start hitting 50 employees and number 51 comes along, you're going to have to probably hire your own accounting staff. And that's when it becomes hard. But by that time, you're sufficiently big enough as a corporation and a company to where you can show anybody, any agency, that we do have an independent internal audit designed to find any mistakes and stuff like that. It's tough. It's tough because even the guys that are making $100 million a year, even Bill Gates, you end up with some people that are great, and you end up with some people that are lousy. And it happens at any corporation. The little guy can lose, 75% of his earnings and profits, and so can somebody who has $1 billion company. It happens. We don't like for it to happen, but it does happen.
Very true.
Thank you for sharing that knowledge. It's useful knowledge, and it's there's research that you can always Google it and to the public where it says that Hispanics and Latinos are the growing minorities who own businesses, small businesses. So historically, all other people who got come to the States, they open their businesses, and that's how they grow and become successful people. And we're doing the same. Hispanics and Latinos are opening their businesses. Some are small, and then eventually they grow and become big. And so yeah, so if you're listening and you want to open a business, it's probably the show that you need to watch and see fully. Thank you, Eduardo and Maria, for sharing information. So now the business, you had an idea, you set up the business, and now you're operating. Now you know how to expand. What else can you do to make it even better? Do you need a marketing team? Do you need what else does it go into the whole package to open to set up the business, manage the business, expand the business. What else? What else goes in that mixture of things?
Okay, well that's another very good question, and here's something that I need to tell everybody. When you decide to start a business, you're going to have to make a very hard decision at the very beginning, and you'll find that it's going to pay dividends when you get ready to expand. And that question is this: is this going to be my baby? In other words, are we going to keep this forever in our family, or are we doing this with the chance of maybe selling this down the road? Because it's very important, because one of them is going to cause you problems every single time. And I'm going to tell you, when you decide to make this your baby, you're going to lose a lot of money, a lot of sleep, and a lot of time trying to figure out why I'm not being successful. If you're going to do this as a business that you're thinking about selling or creating it and marketing it to get to a point where it looks marketable so somebody else can buy it off of you, then you're going to find that's going to be a lot easier for you. Because when you don't have strong attachments to your company, you'll make better decisions, because you're looking at it from a marketing point of view. You're looking at it as a tool and not as I guess a memento or a heartfelt deal. And that's totally important. Maria, I'm sure Maria can tell you that, one of the things that you have to do, I'm sure she's had people tell her, hey, well, how do I do this? Well, you know what? You probably just need to sell this. I'm sure she's told somebody, you know what, just get rid of this, start over. And they're like, no, I started it from scratch, or my dad started it, or my mom started it. And that attachment makes you have lousy decisions.
Yeah, you're right in some cases, but it's also, well, what I've seen in my clients is that attachment is what helps them continue the hard work, because sometimes it's not easy to get up at 4. I have clients that are like construction companies and stuff. They get up at 3, 4 to go to Dallas, and like, you wouldn't do that if that would be a job. This is your baby, right. And that's why you're working so hard for it, because it's something you're gonna give to your kids one day. So
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And here's another thing too. One of the things that I think people forget as well is that's what we're talking about. When you make that decision, and then you have the ability to make other things better. Because like you said, if you made the decision you're going to keep and hang on to this, then you are going to make some decisions that are going to take you a little bit longer to grow. And that's okay, if you're already committed to making it that way. Because if you want to give it to your kids, or you're going to give it to this and that, what have you, then there's not a problem. But when you have somebody that's going to sit out there and give you a hard time, that's when it becomes a little bit difficult. But like Maria said, in some cases you have people that, because they are so invested in their company, that for them it's not a problem getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and doing this and doing that. It's not a problem to come up with an extra $2,000 or $3,000 to keep IRS happy and all this. You can do that. And that's great. But remember, sooner or later, the guy who started it is no longer going to be involved in that company, either because he retires, he dies, or he just decides, you know what, I don't want to have anything to do with this. Once he passes it on, if it's set up to be a family business, remember that the family down the road might decide to sell it. And that happens a lot of times as well. But if you go in with the idea of you want to be a corporation and you're going to sell it, then yes, you're absolutely right. Like Raimundo was saying, you have to think about the marketing aspect, the branding aspect. How do we make this thing work? How do we make it look beautiful in the community with all these other companies, all our competition? We have to figure out, how do we make this viable? The the best example that I can tell you is somebody like Facebook, somebody like PayPal, somebody like that. These companies, they started off with hardly anything. They weren't designed to be, major corporations. They were designed to help a small segment of society, and they got to a point where they looked beautiful for somebody else and said, you know what, we can invest a little money in this, and this thing could take off. How important is that decision? Well, let me show you the difference. We have companies that have been around for literally hundreds of years, and eventually they had to sell only because the kids, grandkids decided, you know what, that's enough. And then we had companies that have been around forever and are probably going to be around forever. Here's my example. Walmart, started by a guy by the name of Sam Walton. He gave it, and he still has it in control of all of the kids. All the kids are in charge of it. They're not going to sell it. They love it because it's the biggest store in the world. So they're not going to get rid of it, all right? Whataburger, same thing. Started out here in Texas as a family business, became nationwide. They just recently sold. Why? Because the kids said, I'm not running this. I can get, $100 million off of this. Why am I going to work? I can retire tomorrow. So you have that aspect of it. And then you have people who created a business to sell, to make more money, to go on and do better things. Example, PayPal. There was a couple of guys that got together in a small group, decided to go ahead and make this a viable company, but they designed this to sell. They never thought about keeping it. They designed this to see if I could get somebody to nibble, buy this company, and make a little money, and then go on and do something else. That's what they did. It wasn't their baby. One of the guys who did that, or was part of that we know of, his name is, I don't know. What's that guy's name that has Tesla? Yeah. That guy went out there and he took all that money. He now is a billionaire, and he's sending his cars into space, all because of one little bitty product that he got ready to sell. So, I mean, it depends on how you want to start the business, but expansion requires commitment, just as much commitment to start and maintain and manage a company as it does to sell and expand. You're either going to expand it as a family business and keep it. Even if you decide to go public, you're still going to stand there and try to lead this thing into the future. Or are you going to cause franchising opportunities for people and make money through that, which still gives you a little bit of control? Or are you just going to sell it outright? Take the money and run and find you a little island off the coast of St. Croix and live there for the rest of your life. But in either case, guess what? Even and most importantly, at the end, if you decide to expand, if you decide to franchise, if you decide to sell, guess what you're going to need more than anything else? You're going to need a good accounting CPA or bookkeeper, because the numbers are what's going to get you the proper pricing and the proper marketing value of your product. Otherwise, you're not going to get the loans to expand. You're not going to get people to buy your franchise, and you're not going to get anybody to buy your company outright. It's just not going to happen. The numbers have to be there, and you've got to have somebody who knows how to deal with money, period. That's all there is to it on that.
That is true. And taxes. You're going to be taxed on all that money. That is true. And you say something very important. There are companies. I mean, I don't think I know a business owner that starts a company and says, this company is going to fail. They all start a company thinking we're going to be huge and we're going to grow and blah, 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 blah. But you are right. Business owners have the mentality of, this is a temporary business that I'm going to sell. They do have that in mind sometimes. Not the Hispanic community that much, because we tend to be more like, oh, this is the family business. My kid is going to work here. My wife is going to work too. And they try to keep the business around for a long time. Like Las Panaderias, for example, they're family owned. And it's usually the family that manages that for a long, long, long time. So, but you said something that is very interesting, and is like, for example, the name, right? How do you move from a family name to something that sounds more like a corporation that you can sell, right? Because if you eventually have the plan of transferring this company to somebody else, then you're gonna have to transfer the whole name and everything. Otherwise, all the marketing you did before, it's gonna be a waste of money. So that's something that whenever I register a company, we have to think about very carefully, because if your company is going to expand, your name has to fit that expansion. Or if you're going to franchise, the name has to fit that. And that is a very tough decision. I know my business owners take days, weeks sometimes to come up with a good name. And once they come up with the name, they call me and like, hey, what do you think about this name? And we have to research the name and see if it's available, if it's not trademark, if it's not already used, if it has a domain available, and all these different things. So it is a very hard thing to do, to come up with a good name that it's also going to work with the marketing. Because sometimes there's names that are very good, but marketing wise, it's not that smart. You know? Like short names like Walmart, those are catchy names that they would go faster.
Yep. Exactly. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, is that there is a lot of stuff that goes into it. You really have to think about what I'm trying to do. If you're going to stick with this company forever and it's going to be a family business, it's not such a big deal as far as the name goes. But if you're trying to do this and market it in such a way that it may be something that I can sell, then yeah, it's got to be catchy. It's got to be, something that everybody's going to go, wow, man. Good example, Coca-Cola. Who would have thought Coca-Cola?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? It's just a simple two little words that describe exactly what the product is. It's Coca, which is, caramel, actually the caramel of the chocolate, the coca leaf, and it's a cola, which means a beverage. That's it. That's what it is. But that's the name. And the funny thing about it is their name is used by everybody all over the world. Because if you say, I want a cola in any country, they all know what it means. It means I want something to drink. If you say Coca-Cola, they know precisely what you want. You want a specific type of drink. So yeah, can you imagine if you have the right one? Now, Coca-Cola's been around forever and they haven't sold to anybody, and I doubt if they will. But yeah, that marketing deal, I mean, if I had the money and if I could buy Coca-Cola, of course you would take it. Livestock and barrel, the whole 9 yards. So you're absolutely right. Yeah.
That is true. It takes, like I said, it takes a while. It takes a lot of effort from a business owner to come up with a name. It's kind of like a team effort. What I've seen lately is because there's so many small businesses registering. I guess with this pandemic, everybody wanted to be an entrepreneur. So there's a lot of businesses, and a DBA is $16, for example. It's very cheap to start a registration to start a business, and a domain name online is $12. So right there, you can register a website, and I mean it's so cheap right now to establish a business, to start a business, that a lot of people is doing it. And then coming up with better names it's harder than ever before, I guess, because when you have like a construction company and your last name is Lopez and you want to name it Lopez Construction, there's so many variations. Lopez Construction Houston, Lopez Construction Texas, they're like lots and lots and lots. So it's hard to come up with a name that is going to be original, catchy, unique. And you have to do it with your marketing team, with your accountant, with your family sometimes.
All right.
Hey,
Awesome.
Maria, what about, what does a person need as far as getting established with somebody like you? I mean, when you're, like I said, when you have a small, like a taco truck, I don't need anybody like you except maybe once a year at taxes and stuff like that. But once I get to a point where I need to start thinking about payroll and all that stuff, what does a business owner need to bring to you so that you can get all that set up, from the books, the business plans, the financial reports, and all the stuff that has to be part of whatever they're trying to get accomplished? What is it that they got to bring to you?
Well, first of all, any company that comes to my office, I sit with them, and it's usually like a 2-hour talk, and we talk about everything, like why you started your company, what were your goals when you started, and what are your goals now? Where do you want your company to go? How is it right now? If you're at the stage where you want to start giving W-2s and start payroll, because many small businesses, especially in the Hispanic community, they don't give payroll, which means they don't give W-2s right away. They start with 1099s. So whenever they're ready to give W-2s, we have to set up the account with the state. so they can start paying taxes. And for that, we need to know the numbers, right? So we need to do the payroll for them, and we need to do the reports. And usually I also run their books. So I know the ins and outs of the expenses and the income and everything. And then from there, we talk with the owner and see, okay, where you want to go with all this management? What else do you want to do? You want to buy more equipment? You want to start, for example, selling your product in another city? Like, what are your plans as far as growth with your company? Or how can we help you to increase your income annually? And then we talk. It's different because different industries have different necessities. So we try to accommodate to what the company wants to do, what the business owners want to do. Sometimes they don't want to sell anymore because they can't handle anymore and they're scared of growing. That happens too. So it's different situations. Yes.
All right. So, it's all information that it has been provided. It's really good. And
Mhm.
we know that in the Hispanic and Latino community, we're a growing community, and the Hispanic and Latino community, they own a lot of businesses. If a couple years ago, whenever I looked at it, it was that Hispanics and Latinos were the growing fastest community in opening businesses. Hopefully, that's still the case, and we can be proud of that. And Maria, so
Hmm.
can you give us a little bit of history, or maybe Eduardo give us a little bit of history about the Hispanics and and Latinos opening businesses here in the state of Texas or in the states, how that is important, and if Texas is a good state to open a business.
Well, I think there's it's something that happens with Hispanics, with our Hispanic community. A lot of us think, especially the immigrant community, which is a lot of my clients, they come to the U.S. and they start a business and they don't know what are the permits they need. They don't know they need a registration. They don't know they need all these things, and they just start selling their products, no? Like I had this business who was like a resale for material, like materials like lumber and sheetrock and all that. So it's a surplus material place. Okay, he just opened his doors. He has a property on a main road, so he just put his stuff over there like a garage sale, no? But like for construction material. And he started selling. And he got a ticket because he didn't have a permit to sell. He didn't have a sales tax permit. He didn't have a permit for the building that he had. He didn't have a registration for the name. So he didn't have anything. He just opened his doors and started working. And he had the business for like about a year. So what happens is that when I talked to him, he said, I didn't know I needed all these things. So it's not that I didn't want to comply with the city, it's that I was ignorant. I didn't know. And it is like that. A lot of people think they just can open their doors and they don't need any permits or even a registration. I have companies they're making one that I was making more than $1 million, and they were a DBA. And you would think somebody that size is a corporation, right? I would assume like, okay, your corporation. He's like, I don't have a corporation. What do you have? I have DBA, $16 DBA. So it's, and he said, I don't need any more. I said, well, liability wise, you do need something else because you're not protected. Your assets are exposed to anybody, basically. So stuff like that is that the Hispanic community, sometimes we don't know. We don't know what to do once we start growing and we start growing. We don't know what to do with the permits and how to manage everything in general.
All
Well,
right.
here's another thing. And let me add something real quick. That's also important, especially with companies that have to do with construction, lawn service companies, construction companies, things where people are physically involved in their business. Like a lot of the business that I'm sure Maria is talking about,
Mhm.
the especially in the Hispanic community, um, we tend to be not just the owners, but also the primary employees.
Mm-hmm.
So we go out there and we're the foreman for the construction sites. We're the ones that are actually driving the truck, picking up the employees, taking them to go cut grass at a lawn service or whatever it is. But here's something that's very important. Once you get past that DBA stage and you decide to incorporate, like she said, it's crucial because it protects your assets. And we're not talking about assets in the company by itself, but as a personal asset myself. If I do something wrong and we get sued, if we're a corporation under the right structure, then the company is the only one that can be sued. I personally cannot get sued. That's important because I don't want to lose my money that I have for my kids and for my welfare and all that good stuff. On top of that, here's something else that's very important. When you get to the point of incorporating, which you should do, especially if you have a physical job like construction, lawn service, even though a DBA sounds great, get the money together and get that corporation set up as quick as possible. Why? Let me tell you why. Because if you do get sued, it's going to cost you literally the shirt off your back. But here's something else that's just as important. As soon as you incorporate, you're also eligible to go ahead and put in for what they call a key personnel insurance. What is that? Key personnel insurance, what it does is if something happens, God forbid that while we're out there working on a house or working on trying to build one of these new buildings downtown, or we're cutting grass, one of us gets hurt, gets killed, then that insurance takes care of the company. It literally pays the company for my loss. Because as the owner, if I die tomorrow, what happens to the employees? What happens to the company? And that's something that a lot of these people don't realize, and that does happen, unfortunately. And then everybody just goes, well, what do we do tomorrow? Well, the wife doesn't know anything.
Oh, yeah.
That's usually how it works out. The wife doesn't know. Well, you know what? Let's call Roberto. Roberto, yeah, you know, you were working with my husband for 15 years. Why don't you run the company? I don't know anything about running the company. Oh, wow. And then all of a sudden, all these employees are gone somewhere else. The company is gone. There's no money coming in. Mama has all these bills, and she's got nothing to do with it anymore. Well, that key personnel insurance pays that money towards the company to allow them to have operating capital to keep moving so that they can either sell, join somebody else and merge, or at least be able to recoup some of the losses of my death and be able to give everybody severance pay and then just close the business. But it buys you some breathing room, and that's very important that a lot of people don't get a chance to do.
Now that you mentioned that, in the Hispanic community, especially, and with our immigrant community, you don't have to die. You just have to be deported.
That's
And
true. That's true.
happened, I've seen it, where the main operator or the manager, the owner, gets deported, and then nobody knows what to do with the company, like the contracts that the company had. So that person has to, and I always tell them, give power of attorney to somebody that can execute for you in case you leave.
Let me add something on that as well. The power of attorney is important, but the power of attorney has to be limited. All right. Let's make sure that it's not a general power of attorney, because then they can sign for anything and take away your company. We want to limit it to certain aspects. But here's another thing that's important. Another reason why, like she says, please incorporate. Why? Because when you become a corporation, it can't just be sold outright. Nobody can just steal your deal, because there's certain laws that protect you. But here's another deal, and why it's very important. If you get deported as a corporation, you're still the owner. Nothing changed. And under the law, you have a right to come back as an executive of the company, and you can get a visa, an L1 visa, to come in as an executive, all right, to take care of business, to go to the bank, to deal with any lawsuits, to deal with IRS, to get the accountants on, whatever you need to do. You have a right to come back in and take care of your company. And if you're smart, when you get back to whatever country you get deported to, spend a little money, make a little bitty office. That's going to be your international office. Now you're an international corporation, and now you have an ability to come back. Maybe the company can help you get back in as a good, honest to goodness resident, legal. So there's a lot of things. Just because you lose deportation, there's ways to protect your. Because I have seen it, and I know Maria has too, where you get these friends that somebody's getting deported. They just got arrested yesterday. They're going through the deportation proceedings. So that the son's too young because he's only 17, 16. They want to leave it to the son, and they do. They leave it in his name, but they're going to let Uncle Joe take it. He's actually going to be in charge, and Uncle Joe's like, I think I can solve this, and that's what ends up happening. They wait till the guy gets deported, then they end up, before you leave, give me that power of attorney. Because somebody's got to sign the checks for the payroll and stuff. Oh yeah, okay, all right. Somebody's got to take the money out of the bank. Oh yeah. And then Uncle Joe says, I just sold everything. Mm-hmm. Now we don't have a way to get back into the country. We don't have anything for our kids. The kids are staying at the house that I bought we're still making payments on, but they got no money coming in. Mm-hmm. It gets ugly. It gets really ugly. But incorporating is the safest, and it costs a little bit of money, but in the end, it is the best professional business advice anybody can ever give you. That helps out so much.
Right. I have a question, Edward. So what happens to a person who is undocumented, owns and operates a business, but and he employs Americans. He employs more than 4 Americans, more than 5 Americans, or even more, people who are legally in the States, where, what does then happen? What's the legal implications for that fellow? Maybe he's in the process of getting deported, or maybe he's not in the process of getting deported, and he employs, maybe 4 or maybe more Americans. How can that fellow maybe acquire a permission to stay in the States and legally operate his business? I know we're trying to, I know we're still talking about business, but I know it's one of the sides, because we have to acknowledge that there's a Hispanic and Latino community that, it's undocumented, but they own and operate a lot of businesses.
Well, that's a good question. And it's a good question because of 2 reasons. Number one, it happens. It happens every single day. And the second reason is because it's something that nobody ever answers. You can go to attorneys. You can go to a lot of different organizations and stuff that say they're there for you, like the Chamber of Commerce and a couple other business associations. And they don't tell you. They don't tell you because not one of them has the experience of immigration to the level that they need to be able to give great advice. Not good advice, but great advice. And here is one of those situations. In this particular case, what happens? Well, the law is very specific. If a person owns a business and he is not authorized to work in the United States and does not even have documents to be present in the United States, it's no big deal. You can still own a business. What? Yep. You can own a business. You can have a bank account. You can buy a car. You can do whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. So why is that a big deal then? Well, it's a big deal because, like you said, what happens if somebody does show up or your competition finds out and they call ICE and they say, hey, you know what? This guy's illegal. They come to your company. They can't do anything about the company. They can only do something about you. But if you do have U.S. citizens working for you, you do have an accountant that keeps all your books good, you paid all your taxes, you've done everything you can, you may be asked to leave the country, but I can work that, and anybody who knows enough about immigration law should be able to work that to where they can get you a voluntary departure so that when you leave the country, this particular process will not be held against you, so you can apply for that bill that I was telling you about to come back legally, restart or continue on with your business and move forward with it. Don't get rid of the business. Again, incorporate. Don't get rid of the business. And then that helps you get yourself back in. Sometimes if we're really, really good and there's enough people that are able to give us the help we need within the government, and I'm talking about supervisors with ICE and other agencies inside, and they're willing to give us a waiver for being here without documents. That's the only thing that the man has. He's here without documents. He hasn't worked. Well, wait a minute, he owns a business. Yes, but as an owner, you're not an employee. You don't need permission to own a business. You don't need any permission to work when you're the owner, because the owner is not an employee. So you can work 20 years, 30 years, 40 years as the owner. And as far as immigration is concerned, you've never worked a day in your life in the U.S. So that helps out a lot. You might be able to get that waiver for you to stay in the U.S., continue with your business, and maybe even get residency out of the whole deal. But there's a lot of great things, but you've got to know these things. In a situation like that, you got to hire somebody who understands immigration to a level that is a benefit and it doesn't hurt. I would love to say that a lot of the attorneys are know how to do that. They're aware of what the law says, but they never had to use this and make it work before, so they don't have the experience that they need to make this something happen. Accountants, bookkeepers, and CPAs, they see this every single day, but again, they don't know where or who to talk to or who to send these people to so they can solve these issues and make it a better situation for everybody involved. So is it something that we need to look at as far as maybe LULAC or any other organization? Yep. We're still a lot of work for us to do in our community, especially now when we're becoming the majority. There's a lot more work that needs to be accomplished. And hopefully through this show and other shows and maybe other programs that you and I are going to be able to put together, we'll be able to make things happen in the future. So hopefully we'll get that word out.
Definitely, I agree, Eduardo. And in the comment sections, we're gonna put Eduardo's information from LULAC and also his information on his business, and that way you can contact someone that knows about immigration, knows all the deals, and he's also an activist, meaning that he is member of LULAC, and also Maria, because Maria knows how to all the tax codes and everything, and so that way you can contact them because they're great, and that's why they're in community advisors are, because they're providing here information to you, to the public, to Hispanic and Latinos to use. And you can always watch this video as many times as you want. You can share this video to all your colleagues, friends, and family to watch it, to acquire useful information. That being said, any final comments, Eduardo, Maria?
Maria?
Well, I guess my recommendation would be for the immigrant community. Like you say, you don't have to work for somebody. You can create your own job by opening a small business. And I know that is the case in a lot of other communities, like the Asian community or the Indian community. They, because of the language or because it's really hard to get a job when you don't speak enough English and you don't have the paperwork, then they are kind of forced to create businesses, and eventually they're very successful. They make more money than if you work for somebody. I can say that small businesses can make more money than people that has degrees, college degrees. So it is possible. Sometimes it's more beneficial to have your small business, even if you work hard all the time, because that is usually the case. It's gonna pay off in the long run. So if you have the desire to start your own business, please do it. And you can call us or contact any of us, and we could help you. Thank you.
As for me, let me just say this. If you're going to start a business, I want you to think about this. I don't care if it's one person. I don't care if it's 100 people that you're going to employ. Please get somebody that can do your books correctly. That is going to be your biggest problem in business, because you'll be surprised how much money you're throwing away if you don't pay attention to what the books are. And that's important. Now, finding good people, thank goodness we live in a state where we have a very strong law, and we have somebody who watches over all the bookkeepers, CPAs, and accountants out there, and they really are good. I'd say probably about 98% of the accountants and everybody that's involved in the financial part don't have no problem. Some are better than others. Some have more experience than others. But as far as honesty goes and integrity goes, I don't think you're going to have a problem doing that. There are, like anybody else and like any other field, there are those who are out there are not going to help you out. They're looking at how they can take your money. But in the long run, majority of them, remember, you're going to get you get what you pay for. And so look around, shop around, try to find some good people. But you got to have somebody who understands the books. You got to have somebody that really cares about you, because if they're not willing to listen to you and to help you grow your business, then you're in the wrong place. Find somebody better, because in the end, it is your business. And if you want to make a living, you want to pay the bills, you want to send your kids to college, or whatever it is you want to do, you've got to make sure somebody is going to take care of your money. And that's crucial. After that, we can work something out. We can make things happen, but you got to be able to have money to do it, because that's one thing you need in this country. You know, they say it takes money to make money, and it's so true. And the more money you make, the more successful you get. Understand this, and this is why it's so crucial for the proper accountant, CPA, or bookkeeper. You can always tell when you become successful in the United States, because people will start suing you, and you better have somebody watching your money then.
All right, awesome. So thank you for watching us. Thank you to the public, to those who watch us every Monday and every Wednesday from 7 p.m. all the way to 8:15 p.m. And thank you for watching to the public. Thank you to Eduardo and Maria for being here. And that being said, remember, if you live in the state of Texas, tomorrow early voting starts. So it's gonna last until October 30th, and then on November 3rd, remember is the day of the election. So keep that in mind. Please go out and vote, especially if you're Hispanic and Latino. In general, if you're an American and you're able to vote, go out and vote. Because that's our duty as for democracy, if you live in the states. So have a beautiful night. Stay safe.